Dragon Ball Age 1000 may just be the Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 sequel we've always wanted, and the Dragon Ball Online sequel we never knew we wanted. Now, if you're unfamiliar with any of this, you may be wondering, what does all of this mean? Where is all of this coming from? What are all the connections? What is all of this hype for Age 1000? How is it a Xenoverse 2 sequel? How is it connected to Dragon Ball Online? Why does this guy look like a Great Saiyaman? We'll be getting into all of that on today's video. So first, if you're unfamiliar with Dragon Ball Online, it was a massively multiplayer online role-playing game originally based in South Korea. It never saw an English release. All we had were English translation patches that were fan-made, and it has been cancelled for years now. There only exists fan servers of it, and is also known for having Akira Toriyama's input. Now, while it had Akira Toriyama's input, it's speculation as to how involved he was really and how much of the game's writing was done by the actual staff working on the game. One thing is for certain though, Toriyama did do some amount of work for this game. Obviously, it's set in Age 1000, it involves time travel, it involves the Frieza Force, it involves Mira and Toa. So a lot of this was actually taken from online and given to Dragon Ball Heroes and Dragon Ball Xenoverse after Dragon Ball Online ended. Now we're in a new age where Xenoverse 2 has been going on for a long time, and it seems like Xenoverse 2 with the Future Saga DLC may be ramping up to an ending. And a lot of people were asking for a Xenoverse 3 that plays very similar to Xenoverse 2, just like how Xenoverse 2 played very similar to Xenoverse 1. But now, with Age 1000, the new speculation is that we are going to see another refreshing of the franchise, similar to how Xenoverse 2 basically retconned Dragon Ball Online. Now, with all of that said, where is all of this coming from? How are these dots all connecting? And what does this mean for the future of the Dragon Ball world? First, it should be noted, the reason why people are connecting the dots to Dragon Ball Online is because of how they spoke about this video game during the Dragon Ball Genkidamatsuri panel. They spoke about how it has been in development for 6 to 7 years, which is an extraordinarily long time for an anime video game, especially a Dragon Ball game. It's also been confirmed that elements and settings packed into Age 1000 outrange more than any other game in the past. Akio Ioku also confirmed that Toriyama put a lot of work into it, and there are going to be more never-before-seen characters other than the main character that we saw in the trailer. Of course, it is planned for a 2027 release, which they confirmed. It is set in the world year 1000, and more info will be revealed at Dragon Ball Games Battle Hour 2026. So for all intents and purposes, this is the next gigantic Dragon Ball game, and it is an absolute behemoth of a project. During the panel, they also spoke about how they were really working to flesh out this world with Toriyama's help, which kind of does imply that Toriyama was giving them advice, tips, doing a bunch of new artwork as they confirmed for fleshing out this world, very similar to how it has been reported how he was involved with Dragon Ball Online. So sure, maybe the world is big, but that doesn't guarantee it's an MMO. What I think most likely connects this to Dragon Ball Online specifically is the age it is set in and the character's outfit. So the age that Dragon Ball Online is set in is Age 1000. That is, of course, the age where a lot of Earthlings have Saiyan DNA and they're able to become Super Saiyans at will. Now, there is speculation that the new main character in Age 1000 isn't necessarily a Saiyan, but is somehow doing some sort of Genshin Impact thing where he's basically reaching into the past and accessing the abilities of previous fighters across the planet in order to borrow their abilities and become a powerful fighter. However, that is besides the point. This is still set in the Age 1000, which is an iconic age known for the timeline of Dragon Ball Online. Now that's one connection, but what also makes this even more interesting is the history of the Great Saiyaman in the Dragon Ball Online timeline. In Age 820, several Frieza Force members attack the Earth. Then, the heroes of Earth gather at Master Roshi's place to eradicate the remnants of Frieza's forces. Now, the people who ultimately defeat the Frieza soldiers are Krillin, Tien, and their comrades, the heroes of the past. In order to hide their identities, the warriors put on a Saiyaman costume, but their ki-based fighting style still becomes a hot topic and global interest in ki escalates. And as I said earlier, if you look in the trailer for Dragon Ball Age 1000, it appears that the main character is in a Great Saiyaman inspired outfit with the number 7 on his sleeve and the letters GS on the other. It would make sense that if Toriyama is doing his own version of Dragon Ball Online, a new history, similar to what Dragon Ball Xenoverse and Dragon Ball Heroes did to Dragon Ball Online. Perhaps this story of the Great Saiyaman originating in Dragon Ball Online's history came from Toriyama himself, and he's just carrying that idea forward, where in the brand new Dragon Ball Age 1000 game, you are playing as another Saiyaman in a longer line of Great Saiyaman. It's also worth mentioning that in Dragon Ball Online, we got the introduction of Xeno Trunks, who was our Trunks, but slightly different with a brand new design. If you pay close attention to the Dragon Ball Age 1000 trailer, it appears that they are going to be doing a kind of pseudo version of Xeno Trunks with a new version of Goku, who obviously, based off the outline and silhouette, does appear to have a different costume, which is very interesting and another callback to the original Dragon Ball Online Age 1000 era. So there's several connections to Dragon Ball Online, but how does this connect to Xenoverse 2 exactly? Well, other than the fact that Xenoverse 2 borrowed a lot of elements from Dragon Ball Online, it should also be noted that Xenoverse 2 is the most recent active timeline of events that we have for the roughly combined Xenoverse, Online, and Heroes lore. If you're unfamiliar, Dragon Ball Heroes and Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 are basically spiritual successors to Dragon Ball Online. They borrow lore from each other a lot. And Xenoverse 2, released in 2016, it has been out for over 9 years. The Future Saga DLC really seems like they're kind of slowing down the development of Xenoverse 2 and possibly leading us into the future. Now, in a world where Dragon Ball Daima exists, I don't think Xenoverse is going to stick around much longer because of how much it relies on the Demon Realm and the Time Patrol. I think it's time to move on. But that doesn't mean we can disregard everything that Xenoverse Online and Heroes has established. Also, Toriyama worked on Dragon Ball Online to some extent, so I'm sure whenever they put Age 1000 together, they realized, hey, we have a future that Toriyama really fleshed out. Maybe they could still use the time-traveling aspects in some way, even if they need to separate it from the Demon Realm, and I believe that could be what Age 1000 is playing with, especially with the fact that it seems like the player character is accessing heroes of the past in his ability kit. Now, with all of that said, we will be getting more information about this during the Dragon Ball Games Battle Hour 2026 event scheduled for April 18th through the 19th. It's going to be an absolutely massive event, but to be honest, the thing I'm mostly excited for about this game is the fact that Toriyama is so deeply involved. Like I said, the amount of involvement Toriyama had with Dragon Ball Online can be contested. It's clear he did a lot of work, but the tantalizing thing about this project is we know that Toriyama was deeply involved because Akio Ioku helped manage the Dragon Ball video games and anime rights and is consistent with bringing Toriyama on board. And he has confirmed that Toriyama did a lot of artwork and helped world build for this video game. So I have no doubt this is going to be the definitive Age 1000 of Akira Toriyama's Dragon Ball world. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe to keep up to date with all things Dragon Ball news and commentary. And I will catch you in the next one. Peace off.